So Speedsters, Death of the Speed Force. I was kind of hyping this episode up just like the showrunner Eric Wallace did in terms of how this episode was meant to be pivotal to the Flash mythology moving forward, and now I've just come back from seeing it and this is my review and my thoughts and my reaction and just my breakdown in general. What did I think of it? I honestly think that this episode was probably my favorite of the season. I wouldn't say it ticked every single last box, but in terms of like overall, you know, just enjoyment factor and just Flash, you know, like what do you want a Flash episode to be, and what should it consist of, the storylines and kind of the characters that you want to be involved, especially with that ending and Wally coming back and just Flash stuff. This episode I feel ticked all of those boxes. So today guys, of course we're going to go over my breakdown as usual. I will try and get a trailer breakdown out as well because I have a lot to say about that reverse Flash stuff, and there was some interesting stuff that's definitely in that trailer, so keep your eyes out for that. But let's get into this guys, because yeah, I've got quite a few things to say. So to kick off this episode, we were introduced to this kind of metahuman of the week storyline, which, you know, I'll get onto the metahuman of the week. It was like the only kind of average thing about this episode. I think we all kind of know. I know some people love metahumans of the week, but for me, I feel like this is the personification of that, but either way, it served for a very impressive introduction for Wally West, who demonstrated some of his new powers right off the bat through making multiple versions of himself, and I was very, very happy with this. This episode contained a lot of kind of effects, CGI if you will. I would say average of that of the Flash. They weren't bad, they weren't amazing, but they were very, in terms of the context of this episode, just very enjoyable to watch, and Wally seemed like a freaking master. Like in this episode, to be honest, you know, as Wally said himself in the line, like, you need to find yourself a new teacher. It's kind of funny hearing him say that, but it's kind of true. He's like the master of Barry at the minute, at least the way he came across. I think we all know at the end of the day, Barry Allen will always come through as like the chosen one, if you will, of the Flash world, but Wally West here was just like a formidable freaking speedster of his own right. I mean, for crying out loud, he's learned the ability to make a flower out of Speed Force energy. But we also had Cisco return in this episode, guys. I've missed that guy. First line of his greeting Earth Primelings. It's fantastic seeing him back. I really hope that he doesn't go anywhere. And if you're wondering about that, I just, you know, of course, some people get annoyed with bringing up the whole rumor again. Is Cisco leaving, or is Caitlin leaving, or this, that, and the other? But I made a whole video since we're getting new season regulars, series regulars, if you will, next season. Like season 7, Chester P. Runk is going to be a series regular, and so is Allegra. No word on Camilla yet. I highly doubt it, but we'll get onto that maybe some other time. This is kind of going off topic right now, but it just makes you think, you know, is Cisco leaving? And that's why it kind of factors into what I'm saying now, because I just love his character, and he has been all over the place. To Atlantis, he's been chilling out with Aquaman and all the fishy wishies. You know, that's pretty cool name drop. It actually would have been even cooler if they said, you know, I hung out with a guy named Arthur, but either way, it's cool to see Cisco come back. Now, this is where we get into the meat and knit and grit of the death of the Speed Force, and I'm going to mainly talk about this in one chunk, so I'll get onto the other parts of the episode like Iris, Nash Wells stuff towards the end, but I feel like I need to let this all out in terms of what I'm thinking at one go. So Barry trips up due to his Speed Force glitch. They kind of go over how, you know, Wally has even been sensing that there's been something wrong with the Speed Force. Barry with his little electrical hand back when he was in the Argus cell with Diggle, and Wally says he's learned how to communicate with the Speed Force through projecting his consciousness into it, which leaves his body behind at the same time, whereas the Speed Force for Barry, he doesn't communicate with it kind of in his mind or hear a voice. He has always had the Speed Force come to him, and he kind of goes into it physically. But the key thing here out of this is that voice in Wally's head has now stopped, and this led to Wally asking Barry about what happened between him and the Speed Force. Now, this is where Wally actually uses another one of his powers and projects Barry, not only himself with his unique way of, you know, talking to the Speed Force, but Barry as well. This is where we saw that scene from the trailer where everything was kind of green. There was green lightning, white lightning, and the whole place was just going to shite, to be honest. Barry may or may not have done something, and it was actually something to me pleasantly surprising with this story, because I think a lot of us were thinking, has it got something to do with blood work? And even Barry, they conveyed that in this episode as, you know, was it when he kind of punched through the Nora representation of the Speed Force? But no, it was something else. So as for like the story so far in the episode, as I said, it wasn't like the most perfect thing, but it was, you know, I was really enjoying the roller coaster ride we were going on. I think, as I said, every kind of bullet point you want to keep in a Flash episode, kind of like when you're creating a character in a video game. This may make sense to some of you, may not. It's just a weird analogy, but I have to get out of the way. You're not going to drop all of your attributes in an RPG game in just strength or something like that. Sure, you'd be amazing at strength, just like how in the Flash, you don't want to drop all of your points in story. You've only got so many, so you want to put it in several different categories, and that's what I feel like this episode did. I feel like they just dialed everything up to a decent point of where this episode made it so impressive to a fan like myself. I feel like this episode will kind of go down for me especially, and maybe many other fans, in a retrospective sense, like, oh yeah, season 6 was good kind of thing. Oh, do you remember that episode? That was like such a highlight. Now in that Speed Force storm, they learned that Nora, who obviously comes across as Barry's mother, who is really the Speed Force, is dying because of what Barry did, and Wally is kind of frustrated because he didn't tell Wally months ago about this, and maybe, just maybe, they could have done something about it back then. There was a bit of frustration between them both. I really appreciated more little nuggets of kind of lore, if you will, of how Wally said that to Barry, like, you don't get it, man, all of us, like the Speedsters, are connected. The Speed Force even used to show him visions of different futures and different possibilities where things could go. He explains Barry that in those kind of visions of his, there was always a Speedster to pick up their mantles, to the point of where the legacy of the Flash and Flashes, if you will, stretches through the centuries. Like, so to the point where he saw his own kids running with their kids, and he even saw Nora, like the new Nora, not the erased Nora, but the Nora they will one day have as a Speedster. But now, because of what Barry did, it ends with just Wally and Barry. So this is where we get that Tachyon enhancer moment from the trailer explained, because Barry doesn't have the ability that Wally quite has, so he has to kind of boost himself up to enter the Speed Force physically to try and sort this out for once and for all, fix his own mistakes. This is where we get the true explanation behind what happened, where all of us, including the main character himself, thought that it was something to do with the blood work scenario. But it turns out that Nora, the Speed Force Nora, explained to Barry that it was actually the Spectre energy, and I've referenced this so many times, and I found like, oh, like I've spoken about it so many times, even after the crossover, but little did I ever think that it was necessarily something that would cause the downfall and destruction of the Speed Force. I referenced it to the point of how maybe we should be speculating about how when Oliver said, I've unlocked your true potential now, Barry, maybe when his hand was fizzling like it did in the Argus cell with Diggle, that maybe new things were coming along the way in like an overpowered, exciting sense. But little did I know there was actually the Speed Force kind of on the fritz in a bad way. So Oliver, thanks for nothing, man. I mean, actually, to be fair, what I did like about this part of the story as well is that even though this was Barry's fault, any hero would have made that call, as Wally said. Like, you know, even the Speed Force forgives him because as a result of the Speed Force dying, fair enough, that sucks, but he did save the multiverse. So all in all, like, as the story was going at this point in the episode, as I keep saying, like, it's like I'm really, really enjoying what I'm seeing. This felt like, you know how in season 1 and season 2, the main plot kind of centric episodes, which were very consistent throughout the season, were always entertaining and always at this level of intrigue and seriousness. And it felt like they were always, I don't know, something really pivotal to the Flash mythology as a whole going on all the time, because obviously we had stuff going on with Eobard, we had Barry learning his powers, we had stuff with Zoom, his second ever, you know, enemy to face off against, which is a whole learning curve. And ever since then, it's been more about this experienced Speedster, which I really enjoy, but it's also had its downfalls. But now with episodes like this, and with this new season with Eric Wallace at the helm, it feels like, you know, stuff is really getting serious again, and it feels like this is going to bleed out into multiple episodes because, well, yeah, just the kind of way it ended with this whole artificial sense, which I can't wait to talk about, and probably will get more in depth in my trailer breakdown. So as a result of this green and white lightning from the Spectre's energy, which kind of causes this, you know, infernal power, which is beyond the laws of the Speed Force's nature, the Speed Force essentially dies. And as for the Speed Force left in Wally and Barry, they've got a little bit left. It's like, you know, they've only only got so much juice or like battery in their phone, so to speak, so they have to use it sparingly, I guess. And this really looks like it's gonna bleed heavily into the next episode with the Reverse Flash. And the most interesting thing about this is, as well, as I said, ticking the boxes, I was thinking, how does this affect the negative Speed Force? I mean, I knew there was two separate things, but I've always been wondering about what's going on with Thawne. I just wanted some kind of answer, and we actually got that, because obviously this episode carried on some other story points, even though this was the main focus with the whole death of the Speed Force stuff. Very quickly, the Russian kind of metahuman of the week storyline, it was okay. I'm not going to compliment it too much just because it was okay. It was average. Obviously, it kind of bled into the main storyline. Wally and Barry worked together. It provided for an amazing scene where they were like running up the walls in the CCPD, very much so, and thoroughly enjoyed that. But as for rating, oh, like, God, you know, I'm gonna kill you now, like stuff like that. It was just a bit like CW Metahuman of the Week. Yeah. But ultimately, Turtle 2, who turned out to be the kind of Metahuman villain, was defeated. And that's all I got to say about that. So Nash Wells obviously wanted some help, especially given the last episode where Sherlock Wells was saying, you know, he is coming, a Reverse Flash with the red eyes, and Cisco kind of like didn't really want to help Nash until it was a little bit too late. He came to say to him and apologize to him for being a jerk, and that is when Nash instantly looked like Eobard Thawne. Like, he was still Nash, but I think the way they do it on the show, obviously, is Tom Cavanaugh's facial expression. It's almost like barely anything has changed, but it's this unique Reverse Flash persona mode. But it's also the eye makeup. And that's when Eobard Thawne tried to kill Cisco. Did find it a teeny bit cheesy of like, how do you not realize your arm isn't like shaking with Speed Force when you try and kill him? I don't know, but it was still very captivating in this moment. But I was also kind of low-key a little bit taken out of it in the sense of but the thing is, before Crisis, Eobard Thawne was his own dude and he was running around Central City. Nora died, she got erased from existence, and Eobard said, see you in our next crisis, ran off, and all was well with Eobard. Like, he's just been Jay chilling, but now all of a sudden he's this freaking possessive ghost. Are you just telling me, like, because of Crisis, he became a ghost possessing kind of thing? I don't know. That doesn't seem as cool to me. I said in a video not so long ago about when will we see the Reverse Flash again, and I did say I don't really want him to come off as a one episode appearance if he comes this season. I want him to be reserved for like a longer arc. And it seems that they're doing that, but at least it's not a one episode, one-off kind of thing. Because he's been bled into a couple of episodes now, considering last episode, this episode, next episode, given the trailer, who knows for how much longer, but there's an episode called The Exorcism of Nash Wells, so I think it's safe to say all will be okay in there. But yeah, I don't know, as amazing as I will consume this content and find it amazing, I just feel like maybe the character should have been reserved, and I do have issues with the fact that maybe they will explain it. I hope they do. I really hope they do. But the big issue for me is we had the Reverse Flash running around with his negative Speed Force energy, but now he's nothing but a ghost. However, from the trailer though, that all may be explained. That may be being a bit premature in what I'm saying right now, because he's in the Reverse Flash costume. He seems to be fighting Barry. And if some of you are like, oh yeah, but Boba, Crisis did this. Well, that's not good enough for me. Like, why did it make Eobard a ghost? But to be fair, Crisis sometimes is a good explanation, because when there's lots of worlds and there's a whole new universe and some of them died, like there's still Nash left, maybe they did blend into one weird spacey timey-wimey thing to the point of where that included Eobard because his DNA changed into Harrison Wells, and therefore that made him like a kind of thing in how he is now. I don't know. But either way, loved that scene when Barry saw Eobard Thawne. There's going to be a whole bunch of chemistry coming next episode. I love these moments. Tom Cavanaugh, Grant Gustin. I don't need to explain to you guys how captivating those scenes are. And this is when things got very interesting. I got my answer of what I wanted earlier in terms of just like, you know, kind of Thawne's intrigue, because I was saying that and questioning that in terms of how I knew Thawne was still out there from the end of season 5 and what he'd be thinking of this whole Speed Force death thing. And it turns out that he was saying on top of like, yeah, I'm going to kill you and kill all of your friends kind of thing. This is why you shouldn't trust such a kind of puny, pathetic force. That's why I built my own. But this gave Barry the idea of which I really don't necessarily like, because Barry is just like, hey, why don't we create our own Speed Force, our own artificial force? And it's like, I don't really want that. You know, as a fan, I want to see Barry recreate the Speed Force. I want the Speed Force to come back to life. Maybe that's too typical, whatever. Like, you know, it could be written in a million different ways, and it happens to be going down the avenue that he wants to create an artificial Speed Force. Now, I do see the appeal of that. Barry might revitalize the Speed Force and have a new one which offers so many, God knows what, potential opportunities for the future, and it will be probably just a replicant of the previous Speed Force. It will act in many similar ways. It will just be a whole new thing, right? And once again, I do want to caution that I may be prematurely kind of saying this in terms of how it may not go that way. The old Speed Force may well indeed come back or whatever, but if they really do create a whole new one, I just want it to be the old Speed Force. I want it to be the Speed Force. I don't want it to be a new thing. It's not the same. So I hope some of you kind of understand my concerns there. Some of you may find this idea freaking awesome, and I completely understand that perspective. But to me, it doesn't really feel like any different as to what Zoom was trying to do, creating artificial kind of Speed Force energy, and what Godspeed was doing. And it's just like Barry's got to be the successful one to do it and create a whole new kind of energy and beings maybe for his own Speed Force. But hey, yeah. Again, I could be completely premature in saying this, and it is just going to come back, and he's going to be happy with that. Other than that, though, Wally leaves the episode. He does point out to Joe, interestingly, that Iris, there's something up with her, and to keep an eye on her. And speaking of Mirror Iris, she was not happy with Camilla taking a picture of her early on in the episode, and at the end of the episode, after looking at the camera, trying to delete the photo, somehow this filter opportunity pops up, very convenient. It's just like, hey, do you want to apply this filter? Like, you should do it, and she clicks it, and then you can see that it's somewhat of a strange Iris. And then Mirror Iris uses the mirror gun, and Camilla goes bye-bye, which was a cool thing as well. So, like, there were so many things. This is what I mean. Many different bullet points in this episode that was ticking many, many boxes. This is what I call top tier Flash. This is the Flash at its best. It really is. I'm not saying every episode should or can be like this, but man, if they could keep up stuff like this, which it does seem like they're going to do for at least a couple more episodes, given the trailer for the next episode, it feels like the Flash is on fire at the minute, and I'm very happy with it. And that was overall the episode. Thoroughly enjoyed it, if you couldn't tell already. Got a lot of questions, got a lot of kind of concerns in terms of apprehension of this artificial Speed Force, but who knows, I may end up loving it if it actually even does become an artificial Speed Force that is created by Barry. It's still a cool idea, I just am not totally on board with it right yet. I want to know more about Thawne. Why the hell did, and what the hell did Crisis do to change things in terms of how he was just in his own body and running around, but now he's just a ghost? But I would love to know your thoughts on those thoughts of mine that I just listed down in the comments. So keep an eye out for my trailer breakdown as well, guys. We'll go over this and rehash it a little bit more in there and just speculate about what we see in the trailer, of course. But hey, hope you liked the video. If you did, leave a thumbs up on it. Why not subscribe for more videos like this? Check out my past couple of videos as well. One of them should be appearing on the screen. Join my Discord server, talk about the Flash with me, more there in voice chat or on text chat. I do have a Patreon where you can support me and the channel a bit further. But thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you speedsters in the next video. Goodbye.